So welcome to the Ward 5 and 6 NPA meeting. Our slide here is kind of fixed. It's a beautiful but uneditable image that says Ward 5, but this is a joint meeting of the two wards, which we're delighted to be doing, with a special focus tonight on affordability and on the bonds that voters are being asked to consider on the town meeting day ballot. So why don't we go to the next slide? So I just want to go through some quick guiding principles for Ward 5. First of all, that this is a safe space, a welcoming forum for anybody and everybody from our ward, and tonight from Ward 6 as well, to show up and be a part of the discussion. Second, that we work hard to be accessible, although it's a little tricky when you are over fire department capacity for a room, but we're doing our best. And to engage with all community members. So it's really lovely to see a wide range of folks here, including a number of faces that I don't know, but that I'm pretty sure are from Ward 5, which is fantastic, and all our friends from Ward 6. We always aim to be respectful, respect cultural and economic differences, and value diverse perspectives. And I want to underscore that particularly tonight, because affordability means very different things for different people in different life circumstances. And we really want to be open to that full range of perspectives and experiences that people are bringing. Next, we really work to be a vital space, to be relevant, creative, and fun, as well as delicious. Thank you, Fareed, for the food. And last, the NPA is, of course, nonpartisan in the sense that the NPA itself does not endorse political candidates, although we strive to be a forum for people to learn about political candidates. And I know there are several in the room tonight, so avail yourselves of the opportunity and meet some of the folks who are running for office. All right, next slide. Let's take a quick moment to introduce the members of the steering committee for the Ward 5 NPA, and then I would invite after that the folks from the Ward 6 NPA steering committee to introduce themselves as well. I'm Jason Van Drysch on the steering committee. Other Ward 5 folks, if we could just go around.
Lena, they, them, Ward 5.
Kathy Foley, Ward 5. Where else are we?
Fareed is on the steering committee.
I'm Fareed.
I'm Jack. And I think Joe is Joe here? Joe is not here tonight, but he is a longstanding member of the steering committee. And Ward 6, if you'd like to go around and introduce yourselves, the folks who are on the steering committee.
Dale Azaria.
Steve Harkins.
The others.
And I will just say Romeo, who's right here, has been on our steering committee, but has stepped back right now, and we are really sorry to see him.
All righty. And there's information here on the screen about where folks can find more information about the NPA, both on the NPA's standalone website and on the City of Burlington's website. We endeavor to keep those up to snuff. And I noticed that the NPA liaison here has not been updated. My apologies. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, I'm Shawnee Corey. I'm the NPA liaison for the City of Burlington.
And Zach was the sort of interim liaison for a couple of months and did yeoman's work in between the Fosca, who was the previous, and Shani coming on board. And of course, you can always find these recordings of the NPA meetings on CCTV. And thank you to Charlie, who's our stalwart filmer and here, videographer, and here every time. You'll see the microphones around the room. They don't appear to do anything, but that's because they're not for us. They're for the folks who are watching remotely and who might watch the recording later. So if you're speaking, please make sure you are at a mic or get a mic passed to you. Otherwise, the remote folks can't hear you. All right, next slide. So here's our agenda tonight. Community dinner is well on our way. We're a little behind on the welcome on the public forum, but that's fine. And we're going to launch now into public forum. And what I would ask is that folks use this time to raise any issue besides affordability. Since affordability and the bonds are the core focus of the meeting, let's save those for that part of the agenda. But if anybody would like to make an announcement, raise a question, a concern, anything at all aside from our core topic for the evening, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself by name and what ward you live in, and make sure you're near a mic. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Epler-Wood. I live in Ward 6. I just wanted to let you all know that we've formed a committee on green infrastructure for Ward 6, and we'd like to include Ward 5 in that process. And we seek to cooperate with business, government, the NPAs, and local nonprofits to educate and promote more use of green infrastructure in Ward 5 and 6 to lower risk of flooding, improve Lake Champlain health, establish more green buffer zones and protect them, such as the barge canal, and prevent commercial use of areas prone to flooding which have not been protected from increasing rainfall, using solutions that do not channel more runoff into Lake Champlain. Nancy.
Again,
Awesome.
I'm
Hang,
Nancy
hang on, before we go on, how can people find out more and get involved?
We're going to tell you, is it like two more minutes?
Oh, perfect. Yes, thank you. I just thought you were done and I wanted to make sure
Yeah,
we got
she's
that.
on my committee.
Great, go for it. Thank you.
I'm part of the committee, so if you're interested, and we hope you will be interested in getting, or joining us, you can reach out to me. My email is under the Ward 6 Steering Committee. And what we're really trying to do is educate people and get people involved in ways that you can make a difference individually, and we can make a difference as a community. And a couple of things that we're working on is in April, we're going to have a meeting, which we will invite Ward 5 to attend, where we're going to have an outside speaker talk about what green infrastructure looks like and what it could be in Burlington. More to come on that. We're also going to organize a cleanup day with Barge Canal. And we're also working to promote things that people can do on their own, like establish a rain garden in your backyard, let people know more about seed grant programs that are available to help with that, and promote other programs like Adopt a Drain. So we're doing everything we can to look at improving our infrastructure to improve our water quality. And again, we hope you'll join us, and you can reach out to me. My email address is on our Ward 6 NPA page. Thank you.
Yeah, and the committee right now is composed of myself, Diane Geyer, who is not here, but is our technical expert, and then Nancy Harkin and her husband, Ted Cavey, but we'd welcome other members.
Thank you. Others? Here in the back.
By the way, I love the Adopt a Drain.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Send a mic
I
back.
can also chat pretty loudly. I have. Oh, I see. Okay. I'm a mom of kids, so I can be very loud. My name is Jen Monroe Zakaris, and I'm running for the South District City Council seat with the Progressive Party nomination. I've already chatted with a lot of folks here in the beginning, but happy to chat more after the meeting if anyone wants to, hear more about my campaign, ask me any questions. You can also learn more at jenforburlington.com. Thanks.
Thank you. Others?
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Buddy Singh. I'm also running for the South District seat with the Democratic nomination. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you, Jason, for inviting me. I'm here afterwards to talk about any issue that's concerning to you. I'm really excited to actually listen to everybody here and hear what you have to say about affordability. It's really an important subject for everybody in this city. So I really look forward to hearing everybody's opinions, and I look forward to getting to know everybody as I campaign. So thank you very much.
Others? Great.
Hi, everybody. My name is Fareed. I'm a volunteer with the People's Kitchen. Since September, we've been serving free food late at night downtown, 3 nights of the week on Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday nights. We started out with serving a couple of people, and now we're up to between 50 to 100 people. Anybody we will serve without regard to ability to pay. And also, we have been helping distribute winter survival supplies for our unhoused neighbors. it's getting really cold like at night. And although there are shelters that are opening, it is not enough. I think we have maybe 60 beds like projected to open, but there is at least 300 homeless folks out there sleeping on the streets and in the parking garages. We are 100% volunteer run and community supported. If you are interested in supporting our work, you can donate some labor and time. To get involved, please send a text to 802-491-3491. We also would love to get help with making a meal. If you are a cook, we can probably provide you with ingredients as well. And if you send money donation through PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App to the user People's Kitchen VT, it goes a long way to help us carry out our mission. Thank you.
Your phone number again? Just
802-491-3491. You could also email me Fareed, Fareed @workerscenter.org.
by the way, another great meal. That's why I couldn't get my pen.
Glad you like it.
All right. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm Alan Matson in Ward 6. I just want to point out that this year, first off, the elections coming up will be run by, your ward clerks and your ward inspectors for both wards. And this year, I think, is the year that all ward clerks are up for election, as well as many of the inspectors. The inspector is a 3-year term, the clerk is a 2-year term. And, I hope that many people in this room would either consider running or will get a hold of ward clerks to work the elections, as we always need poll workers for all the elections. Last year we had 3 of them. This year we probably only have 1 unless there's a special city election. So that also being said, I will be running. I am currently an inspector, although I think I just resigned. I am running for ward clerk in Ward 6. So if anybody's here from Ward 6 who hasn't talked to me or, signed a petition for a candidate for Ward 6 clerk, it'd be great if you got a hold of me afterward and we could talk elections. Thanks.
Back.
My name is Jack Tiano. I live in Ward 5. Actually right on the borderline between Ward 5 and Ward 6 on St. Paul Street. I just really quickly wanted to let everyone know about a not higher level, but a more broad organization that I'm involved with that we just launched this week called Let's Build Homes. This is like a statewide intended to be nonprofit, kind of starting up to push for the housing solutions that Vermont needs at the state level, but obviously that has a lot of impact here in Burlington as well. I know this will probably play into the conversation tonight. It's kind of at the top of the list of how we're going to deal with a lot of these problems in terms of how do we make sure that we make progress on the housing crisis, both from a quantity of housing available and the affordability of the housing that we do have, and making sure that everyone is served by housing in Vermont. So if you want to learn more about that or sign on to our coalition, you can go to letsbuildhomes.org. And there's a lot more information on there, and it's very new. It just kind of launched earlier this week. Thanks.
Others.
Thank you. Hi, Ward 5. My name's Mila Grant. Some of you know me. I like to periodically visit this NPA. Just a reminder that the Public Safety Committee meeting, our next one, is going to be on this coming Thursday. We are remote, and that is available. Information's available, and the links as well as the agenda on the city's website. The last one was on December 19th. Really interesting presentation from Lacey Smith, who is the director of the CAPE program. So a lot of information on what those professional positions are doing inside the Burlington Police Department and out in the community, as well as data with regards to the number of people they're interacting, how long they spend with the people, and the type of work that they're doing. And the other thing I want to talk about is cats. Cats, people, cats. Now, some of you may walk your cat on a leash. That's all right. You do you. Some of you I know, I've seen you put little cats in strollers. That's also awesome. You do you. But some of you, and it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood. You go into some neighborhoods, you see a lot of quote unquote outdoor or roaming cats. In other neighborhoods, not so much. But for those of you who have outdoor or roaming cats, be aware that one of the things that came out of the dog task force was to update and add some things concerning leashing cats. And there will be, it's the same night as a public safety committee meeting, but you'll be able to watch the recorded version of the public safety committee meeting. For those of you who are concerned about that, recommend that you read the draft of that ordinance update because you may not want to leash your outdoor cat. I think we have a bigger priority with issues around leashing dogs. There isn't really a mechanism for enforcement at this time. And I don't think we should be adding things at this time that we can't enforce. So just spread the word. Just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And thanks, Fareed, for the food.
We have instructions for how to leash the cats.
Yeah.
This is what you get when you put dogs in charge of cats. Anybody else?
Can I just one?
Yes.
I'm Dave Foss. I live at Decker Towers, Ward 5. And go back to the traffic issues we have. I saw one today where on St. Paul, right along the sisters streets there, Caroline and stuff, a girl just ran out in front of my car going slow. She wasn't paying attention. She just ran across the road and almost had 3 people hit them. And the stretch between all along St. Paul, I think, is getting worse instead of better. We have more issues around Decker Towers. I see so many people just speeding through, and they tend to do the California stops as far as doing the stop signs. They tend to glide through it, and more people are going to get hurt. I've seen a couple people slide and fall down in the street because the roads aren't very good right now either. The salting and whatever, there's just something is not right now. And someone is going to get hurt. And I saw there was an accident on the belt line last night. But this girl wasn't more than 16 or 18 running across the road like that, didn't pay attention to anything. But I think we need to really put some pressure. That whole string along St. Paul Street is actually worse, I think, than it was maybe a year ago. I don't know.
Anyone else for public forum?
You can come here, make it easier. Just to clarify on the cat ordinance issues, there was a number of recommendations that were made to the city council from a dog task force that we had asked for. And the issues are a little bit more than cat leashing. It's that there's a range of things that we can do. There are issues in differentiating between the feral cats and cats that people own. There are questions about whether we require cat licensing, getting chips, put microchips for identification, or we do nothing at all. There certainly have been a lot of complaints in the community about cats roaming and causing a lot of harm to wildlife. And so before we did anything, it's not that we really are pretty open-minded, I think, on this, but we wanted to hear from the community because clearly there are multiple sides of this issue and a range of actions that we may or may not take. But the meeting is January 23rd at 5:30. We will get a brief presentation from the dog task force about why they're recommending what they're recommending, and then we will hear from the public after that. Thanks.
That's at City Hall.
That is at City Hall.
And given my work at Front Porch Forum, I can attest that cats and their comings and goings are a significant and ongoing topic of community discussion across Vermont. So we are not alone in that regard. Any others for public forum? Okay. Why don't we switch gears and shift to our community discussion on affordability? I see Chapin is here, and Chapin, if you'd like to come up front, the mayor's office asked if we could add to the discussion a brief presentation about the bonds themselves. So we have some grounding in what we're talking about here. And then we're going to shift gears to the larger question of affordability that the bonds are one part of, but we invite people to go beyond that once we get to that part. But let's start with the issue at hand. And Chapin, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jason. Really appreciate the extra time. Yes, perfect. Don't forget to use the microphone.
How many meetings have you done?
I know, right? And the third one tonight. So first, it's really exciting to see the Ward 5, 6 folks together. This is a great turnout. I'm so glad to be here. I am joined by Erin Jacobson right here, who's the mayor's chief of staff. So she can help answer some questions as well. I really appreciate the 5 minutes, and I am going to be held to 5 minutes because Jason's going to keep me honest. Infrastructure is the foundation of a vital and healthy community. We all know that. When we turn on the faucet in the morning to brush our teeth, we don't want to have to think about whether it's going to work or not. When we flush the toilet, same thing. We get to work, same thing. When we park our car, same thing. So getting the basics right is so important to laying the foundation for the next chapter of the city. It's been about 10 years almost when the first sustainable infrastructure plan was launched in this city. And in 2016, voters approved a bond to help us repair key infrastructure in the city. Trying to bend the trend of deferred maintenance on the city's capital infrastructure when a quarter of the water mains under the city are over 100 years old is not a 5 or 10-year task. We still have a lot of work to do. So there are 3 proposed bond requests that the city council is considering, and I am so appreciative of all the city councilors who are here tonight, who have worked with us to review, revise these requests. One request is a $20 million general obligation bond request for the core general fund municipal assets, streets, sidewalks, facilities, and fleet. We can go into the details of those, but those obviously are very core municipal assets that that aren't part of a utility and that are expensive infrastructure to maintain. 2 is the lake bond, and this is addressing wastewater and stormwater. On the wastewater side, we have 3 wastewater plants that have not been comprehensively renovated in 30 years. The wastewater plants were first built, surprisingly, not until 1953. I still can't get my head around that. But they were renovated 20 years later in 72. Then they were renovated 21 years later in 94 or 93. And then it's now been 30 plus years, and the plants have much of their equipment beyond end of life. So those, and that's a $152 million request. Then the last item is the water bond, and that is $20 million for our potable water system. The majority of that is for renovations to the $7 million gallon reservoir on top of the hill that supplies critically the higher elevation parts of the city, including Vermont's only level 1 trauma center up at UVM Medical Center. So as you're delving into affordability tonight, I just want to make a few points about how we are trying to do what's needed and do it in the most affordable way possible. Number 1, we've trimmed the requests. As the city councilors will attest to, we came in originally with a lake bond over $200 million. We have chosen to phase this work so that the initial request would be $152. 2 Inaction is often more expensive. If we don't fix our stuff and we have to maintain it or emergency repair it on nights and weekends, we're going to be paying more for the service disruptions and the emergency repair than the proactive repair. 3, we're working to limit the asks. There are many other needs within the city, and balancing the city's operational budget is going to be a challenge. We are working, I understand, the mayor and councilors and others to try to bring a budget forward for FY26 on the operating side that doesn't require a tax increase. Additionally, there are other needs in the city that we are waiting on. 4, we are implementing affordability approaches. On the water and wastewater side, as you know, we've launched what we understand to be the first affordability program for water utilities in the state of Vermont. We are looking to further that work and make the affordability programs even more robust so that more people, not just those receiving federal benefits and qualify currently, but there's the lower middle income folks who have a benefits cliff, and we want to work to make sure that those folks as well have some consideration as we need to increase rates in order to afford the water and wastewater investments. Lastly, as part of that 4th affordability effort, there is on the general fund side a tax fairness committee that has just been launched that is being convened by the mayor, looking at how on the general fund side, as we ask for a $20 million bond for streets, sidewalks, etc., is how that money can be raised in a way that is fair across incomes in the city. I think I did it under 5. Is there anything you want to add, Aaron? You're going to need a mic.
Microphone.
Here you go.
Myself, I would forget that, and then I quickly did. Okay, hi. The only 2 little things I would add is I think another additional affordability effort is that we are leaving no stone unturned for other possible funding and financing sources, whether you're talking about creative funding through the state, possible state grants or federal grants. We're always looking for those. We're always talking to our state and federal delegation and folks in Montpelier, and we'll continue to do so. And then I think just the final point I would want to make when we're thinking about affordability and housing and our need to build more housing so that we can also have more of all kinds of housing, including affordable housing. If we don't do these water projects, if we don't take care of our capital infrastructure, we won't be able to build more housing. So it all connects. And I'm really, really pleased to be here tonight and that you are having this discussion about affordability. It matters so much to the mayor's office and to all of us. So thanks.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Aaron. That was affordability strategy number 5 that I forgot to mention. Well done. I will just say no talk about bond proposals would be complete without some paperwork. This is information about the proposals. There are 2 blue sheets going around. One says the water bond and one says the lake bond. So feel free to get both of the blue sheets so that you can get fully up to speed on both. And I am going to stay till 8 o'clock. Jason and I just talked to answer any questions if more come up. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chapin.
Oh, it's going to. Okay.
All righty.
needed on this side?
Yes.
Yeah, I think lake went one way and water went the other way, and they need to
lake for-
cross.
Yeah, we've got lake.
Double-sided.
There you go.
One is about sacred water bonds and one is about the capital. The water one is on the fancier pioneer paper. The capital one is on the
All righty. So what we're going to do now is offer an overview to the best of our ability, and by our I mean Dale's, because Dale did all the work on this part of it, on what the impacts of the proposed bonds will be for residents of the city financially, as a baseline for the conversation to ensue. So let me hand it over to Dale.
Thanks, Jason, and thank you, Chapin and Aaron, for a really great introduction, because I will say it is hard to appropriately frame this conversation about affordability without thinking about the things that we're paying for. At the same time, what the wards 5 and 6 NPA steering committees realized is that we have lots of opportunities for representatives from the city to come in and talk about the initiatives. And the one thing that these NPAs provide is an opportunity for us to talk with each other and in the presence of our elected representatives about the financial impact on us. And I know that anyone who's run for office recently, including me, has heard a lot about affordability. And but sometimes those conversations get lost. One person hears one thing, somebody else hears other things, and we thought it would be useful to have this conversation as a community. And so we're really glad to have it framed by what the money is going for. I want to just give a few words about what we think this will mean for each of us. And then open the floor just for open conversation for people to reflect on these things. And then we're going to wrap it up by taking a very informal survey at the end that we'll introduce later. So Chapin talked about the two bonds, the lake bond and the water bond, with the big dollar totals. And the absolutely critical things that they're going to fund. My understanding is that the impact for each of us in our households will be an increase on our water and wastewater bills of roughly $10 a month in the first year, and then an additional $10 a month each year for the next 4 years, so that we start with $10 a month, $20 over what we're paying now on average. And of course, it depends, I think, a very little bit on water usage, but that's fairly standard across households. So that if your bill in 2025 is $60 a month, say, it would become a bill of $110 a month in 2030. Not jumping that much all at once, but that would be the impact. So starting with $10 a month next year, $20 a month in 2027, and going up, like I say. So this is something to think about. $10 a month, bearing in mind important work that needs to get done, how it sits with us. The city general obligations bond, which funds streets and sidewalks, it funds our emergency and public safety vehicles, it funds the city buildings, it funds the parks. That bond, those costs don't go on our water bills or anything like that. They go on our property taxes. And property taxes go by the value of your house. Right? So it's going to be a different number for each household. And we'll talk about renters in a minute, because I know that a lot of us are renters, and that's a different calculation that is actually much harder to figure out. But if someone lives in a house that is assessed at $300,000, then the general obligations bond will add $7 a month to your property taxes. If you live in a house that's valued at $500,000, it will add $12 a month to your property taxes. If you live in a house that's $700,000, it'll add $16 a month. And if you live in a house that's valued at $900,000, it'll add $21 a month. So the amount that it adds will be different depending on the value of your house. There's a question of how that translates for renters. It is very hard to say, but I think that you can assume, say, that your rent is going to go up by something that your landlord is going to be paying something more, which may get passed through in your rent, likely will get passed through in your rent, and it will be somewhere in that $7 a month, $12 a month, $15 a month range. Landlords have flexibility in how and when and whether they increase the rents, but these are the kinds of numbers that one would expect.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. I don't know if I know the answer. I know very little.
That's why we ask these folks to stay. So
What percentage of the housing stock in Burlington are rent versus own?
You had that, didn't you, Jason?
it's about 3/4 rentals and 1/4 ownership. And it's the inverse of Vermont as a whole. Vermont is the other way around, about 3/4 ownership and 1/4 rental. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I think it's in that ballpark. And if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me.
It's about 70% rental if you include the students and dorms.
Got it. Okay, that's useful clarification. Thank you.
That for the mic.
Joan clarified that it's about 70% rentals in Burlington, 30% owners, but that 70% includes students in dorms. They are considered rentals. So that's part of what drives Burlington's rental percentage higher. But I would imagine even if you took students out of the mix, we would still have a significantly higher percentage of rentals than the Vermont average. 60? Okay.
Pardon me. I was wondering, do you by chance know how that pertains to people who have Section 8? Because I know that's a little, like, probably a completely different thing, but
Yeah, I don't think there's anything useful that we can say about that because Section 8 is complicated and not directly connected to things like bonds, and anything we said about that would just be guessing. But it's a really good question.
I just had one quick question. Do you know what the average house in our Ward 5, Ward 6 is? Because I've heard a lot of the houses that were appraised at like 600,000 and now approaching $1 million. So
By any chance, Joan?
I think, I think it's the average in the South End for assessment, which is different than their actual value, but is probably around 500,000.
You know the answer to this yet, but when we're talking about the increase in monthly water bills and looking at that over time, so I know that Chapin mentioned that there are affordability programs. So I was just curious, like what percent, I don't know how to explain or like what percentage of residents can currently make use of those programs, and then how much do you expect it to increase given your expansion? Because then that could also factor into what the monthly bills will be for folks.
That's a great question. And the first turn of our affordability wheel, when we brought this in a few years ago, addresses very low income, addresses seniors over 65. However, it requires really you to have control of your water meter, which really means you own your own property. And so as the next turn of the wheel that we're looking at, given the numbers of renters that we just talked about, is how can we get the affordability program to renters? And we just 2 weeks ago had a meeting with Burlington Electric and Seattle Public Utilities, because Seattle is one of the places where the water team and the electric team have co-joined on an affordability program, because the best connection to renters is often through your electrical bill, because that is usually metered for each individual unit. And in Seattle, what the water team does is for eligible customers provides a credit through the electrical bill so that the renter can get a direct benefit. We are exploring that program here. We've met with BED, and we are going to run this one to ground as hard as we can, because we do have that issue of struggling to get to renters.
sounds actually like a fair way to do that.
Hang on just one second. Dale, where are you at in what you wanted to run through?
I had just one other piece
All
that
right,
I
why don't
wanted
we
to
do that
mention,
and then
which
Got a question back there too.
great,
Yeah.
we'll do.
So I just had one other piece that I wanted to mention in this initial setup for the conversation, which is that there is a third piece related to affordability that we'll be asked to vote on town meeting day, and that's the school budget. And much to my surprise and delight, the current plans, and I don't, as of when I looked this all up, it wasn't final yet, but subject to any last minute changes, the current plans were that school taxes were expected to go down 2%. My understanding is that that is largely due to the work that our Burlington representatives did in convincing the state as a whole to adjust how school districts get compensated per student based on the needs of the student. And that we were able to bring in more state money, reducing the pressure on us as Burlington taxpayers. So that goes with all of this, right? You know, we all know we need to fund all of these things. Right? And if we are saving money in one place, it makes it easier to find the money to spend in other places. So it's kind of nice. I mean, I wish somebody from the school board here were here to take credit. Oh, apparently somebody else.
Yes, I get some credit anyway.
Here at Word 5 next month for a deeper dive into the school budget, which we will, the board will vote on. Sorry. Gonna say it so the people online.
Yes, I'm sorry. Jibber jabber, food in my mouth. Hi, Lucia Campriello, Ward 5 School Commissioner. Thank you for mentioning the school budget as it relates to this conversation. I will be back here next month to talk a little bit more in depth about the school budget. The board will look at that together one last time on Tuesday. I know it was already presented to the city council and folks already, but yes, we are anticipating a 2% decrease in our taxes, and that is in large part to the advocacy of school board commissioners. I was not a commissioner then. I really can take no credit around advocating for equitable pupil weighting, and we'll talk more about this next week. I don't want to jump into the conversation, but that's going to be a really big conversation in the legislature this season as well, and so likely an opportunity for folks to share their voices in that conversation and make sure that we are protecting that funding.
So that wraps up what I wanted to say by way of individual comments. So I think we do have more questions, and then we really do want to give an opportunity for people to just reflect on any of this to the extent that you're comfortable out loud. And then, like we said, we'll do a survey for those who want to perhaps provide their input in a more anonymous way.
Great. So let's open it up to both questions, comments, anything at this point. Go ahead.
Yeah, Greg Eplerwood, Ward 6. You know, after living here 25 years, I probably should know the answer to this question. But Dale, you mentioned the ramp up of the water bill up for year 4 up to about $120, I think is something.
110.
Well, something like that. Yeah. Well, what happens after year 4? Does it stay there? Does it go down after the bond is paid for? What happens?
I'll let Chapin answer that.
Thanks, Greg. And that is fine. 25 years, you have learned a lot, following your focus on a lot of great community issues. The investments here, these bonds are long-term debt. This increase for the next 5 years is what we're projecting to really be the steepest increase. However, one of the ways we have ramped down the ask for the lake bond at the wastewater plants is by phasing the work and asking voters in the next 2 to 3 years for a second level of investment. What we're planning on doing is pushing out some of the work related to East Plant, which is over on Riverside Avenue, and North Plant, which is the very end of North Avenue. that work will still need to get done. So we are factoring that investment actually in the increases that I've talked about, but our water plant hasn't been upgraded for 40 years, and we are now doing the feasibility work around what it is going to need. So I cannot tell you all that this is the last thing. As we all know, the cycle of capital investment is circular, and we will always need to be reinvesting. The increase will not be as significant as what we're proposing here, but there still will be future increases.
One thing that I'll add to the mix there that's just, I think, also important to keep in mind is that the costs go down in proportion to the population of the city going up. So as more homes come online and more people are able to become Burlington residents, the cost, all else being equal, per resident goes down.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Go ahead in the back here. Come on up and get a microphone.
Thanks. I'm Will from Ward 6. Like, about the rent point, I wanted to say it's not going to be $7, just $7 for the water bill. It's going to include that. It's not just going to be the amount that our landlords receive in education property tax increases. It's going to include that. It's going to include both of those numbers and absolutely as much as our landlords can stomach. And I don't blame them, because there's no rule from preventing from doing that. Like, why wouldn't they get as much money as they can? The institutions, the economy here, the startups, the opportunities for remote work, they've all grown here tremendously, and a lot of people want to live here, including myself. So they're going to get the rent. I mean, one bedrooms are going for $1,800 a month, even more. So I really appreciate the idea of a credit. Like, don't get me wrong. I think we'd all appreciate that. But I think what we really need is limits on the amount that the rent can increase from Montpelier. Like, it needs to be tied to inflation. Otherwise, working people like me are going to keep getting squeezed out of this city, and that's just not good for the economy here. You want to talk about affordability, like, I think it's 50% of Burlington renters are now paying 50% or more of their income each month in rent. That's not good for the economy. Like, we can't recirculate the money that we're making from working here back into businesses here. It's not good for the tax base. So I know it's not really a city level issue, because we can't do any ordinance related to limiting rent increases. On the city level, it's a state level issue, but I think it's something that if you really want to address the core of the problem, that's where you have to go. Like, it's going to be a lot more than $7. I guess that's the entire point I had to make. I think that's kind of critical. Thanks.
You're in the back. Grab a mic.
I just need some clarification.
Do you mind just saying your name before you?
Hi, Mary Hyde, Ward 6. I need some clarification on the bond that was for the sidewalks and the streets and the emergency vehicles. And did you say parks?
Yeah.
So I thought parks already had a stream of tax income that was for them. It's a penny a park, pennies for parks.
Aaron, do you want me to? Parks, as well as the rest of the general fund, is funded through an amalgamation of sources. Penny for Parks is a dedicated tax specifically for some capital work within the park system. The amount of that funding, I don't have at the tip of my tongue. It's not my department. But what I do know is that it pales in comparison to the tens of millions of dollars of deferred maintenance on the parks. And so there could be a proposal where that annual splinter tax could be raised to generate revenue. We are coming, instead of looking for
tax means penny for parks.
Is a dedicated tax, one specific tax for one specific use. We've decided instead to propose one bond to fund the city's general fund overall, which fleet, parks, facilities, streets, and sidewalks would be allocated based on the need, so that if one street blows up one year and things are, North Avenue just falls apart, or something in Ward 5 or 6, that we can shift money there. Or if one park has a failure that needs money, we can shift the, portion of the 20 million there. That way there's a little more flexibility. If you raise 100,000 through Penny for Parks and a road blows up, we can't use the Penny for Parks money on the road.
There's also a difference between what the capital bond monies can pay for in parks versus what the penny for parks can pay for. So for example, if the parks department is providing a service like a camp, the capital bond money can't pay for that. So capital bond is really, think about infrastructure versus services. So there are some differences there.
Jack. Wanted to build off of Will's point a little bit on the renter side of things. Sorry, I forget with the microphone that. So I wanted to build off of Will's point on the renting side of things. I'm not shy about sharing financial stuff, so I'm just gonna like lay out how my renting experience has played out in Burlington. When I graduated Champlain College in 2015, me and two friends got a 3-bedroom for $1,500 a month. I paid $500 a month for rent. As a new grad, finding a new job, entry level, whatever, it was fine. When I moved to the South End, so I floated around in a bunch of different neighborhoods for a while. In 2020, when I moved to where I currently live in the South End, when I kind of established myself in Ward 5, I rented a 1-bedroom, 500 square foot 1-bedroom apartment, no backyard, no front yard, just in an apartment building, a 13-unit apartment building for $1,565 a month. Right now, that's $1,725 a month. So in the last 4 years, my rent has gone up from $1,565 a month to $1,725 a month. So it's like I did the math. It was like $160, about $40 a year. A month, $40 a month, a year increase. I've paid a little over $80,000 since I moved into that apartment in rent alone, in money that's just gone. So like, no, that's not, a mortgage. That's not like interest and something else. That's just money out of my pocket, gone. I have no idea where that money goes. I have no say about making that money cheaper. It's not plausible for me to find a cheaper apartment in the current housing market. My options are to take what the landlord gives me as a rent increase each year or leave Vermont, right? Like I can't move somewhere else. My whole life is planted in the South End. I don't own a car, right? So one of the ways that I can afford to live here and rent here is because I don't have a car. I don't have that extra $500, $600 a month expense. If I had to move somewhere where I needed to buy a car, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave Vermont. So like that's kind of just when we're talking about affordability from a renter's side, right? I appreciate the kind of attempt to look at what the numbers might be and guess, but like that's not the lived experience for renters. Affordability is as much money as can get taken out of your pocket, gets taken out of your pocket, and you kind of deal with it or leave. And so anyway, I wanted to kind of like frame that a little bit and kind of that's not including, it is including water and sewer because and especially in older buildings, there's usually like 1 meter and they don't know where the water goes. So they just charge everyone a flat rate, which will probably go up with this because they'll be able to. But I can't use less water and pay less money. That doesn't include, the number doesn't include electricity. It doesn't include internet. It doesn't include any of the other utilities within water and sewer. So I just wanted to kind of like give some like firm numbers for people who maybe don't have that information or haven't experienced that or don't know someone or talk to people who are paying these costs. So I think that's an important lens though when we're talking about affordability, but what it feels like on the renter side of things. So I'll stop talking there.
Questions?
Hello, Jackson from Ward 5. I just had a question about what you, Chapin, mentioned earlier in terms of deferring these investments typically increases the cost. Do we have a sense for what the cost would be to defer these investments? Is there a projection for that?
Thanks, Jackson. There are some costs that are somewhat that we can extrapolate, such as the construction inflation index that we're seeing in New England be around 10% a year, even as general inflation goes down. So had we looked at every 20 years of upgrading the wastewater plants, we would have had a much less expensive lift back in 2015 instead of 2025. On the other side of the responding to the costs of water main breaks, cities' insurance liabilities around potholes and car damage is harder to get a handle on. But what I can tell you is it takes a lot of city staff focus away from doing forward-thinking work and spending time chasing our tails on fixing the crisis of today. Projects like Great Streets Main Street, which I know has been incredibly disruptive, we're not just repainting the street and widening the sidewalk a little bit. We're fixing the 100-year-old wastewater and stormwater and water pipes underneath the street so that this is a 50-year investment and not a 5-year investment into the surface of the road. The more we can think long-term, we are going to save money.
Others? Okay. Ben, online.
Hey, Jason, I don't know with this format if we have the opportunity to turn our video on, but Ben Travers, Ward 5 City Councilor, City Council President.
Can you get Ben's video on?
I don't know if it's possible in this format. Oh, look at this. Join his panel.
Where'd Ben go? There he is. Hey.
Like I'm right there with you. So Ben
Do you have
Travers,
any
Ward 5
option
City-
for getting more volume? Hang on 1 second, Ben.
Oh,
Yeah. Try again.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Much better. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry for the delay there. Thank you for working through that. Ben Travers, Ward 5 City Councilor, City Council President. I'd like to welcome the Ward 6 NPA to Ward 5 and want to thank you both for allowing those of us with childcare needs on these evenings an opportunity to attend virtually as much as I'd like to be there in person. I'd just like to take an opportunity to say that at the city council level and the mayor's administration and the Department of Public Works have come to us multiple times. In my own personal opinion, I think they've made a very good argument as to why we need this general obligation bond and why we need the water bonds that Chapin just referenced there. And I really do appreciate all the work that Water Resources and I think large part response to some feedback that they've received from the community, including the city council, has done to significantly lower the ask from the water bonds as they were initially presented. And just so folks here know, the city council will be voting on these bonds as to whether or not to place them on the ballot for you all then to decide on them on town meeting day at our city council meeting on January 27th. So I would encourage folks to continue to engage on this and perhaps to even come to our meeting on January 27th. That's the last possible meeting the city council can act on to put ballot questions out there for town meeting day. And one of the reasons I and other folks in the council felt it necessary to wait until that last meeting to decide on whether to put these questions on the ballot is I really do think as much as the need here is well said for these bonds, it does need to be looked at in the context of the entire affordability picture. I'm thrilled, as Dale mentioned, to hear from the school district that we may be actually looking at a tax decrease there. We received at our last city council meeting a first presentation from the mayor's administration in terms of the projected budget estimate for FY26. And I will admit to some concern that the initial estimate of that budget, one thing that has not been mentioned here yet, includes an estimated property tax increase on your municipal taxes of up to 7%. And I have some serious concerns around that. I really do want to support the water bond and the general obligation bond, but we can't do it all. We need to look at this in the context of the entire picture. There's many of us on the council, myself included, who intend on, I believe, continuing to push the mayor's administration to say that a 7% property tax increase on our municipal taxes is too high if we're also going to do the water bond and also going to do the general obligation bond. So I do want folks here to know that many of us in the council, that continues to be our commitment, that if we're going to push through these bonds, that there's still going to need to be some more gives and some more substantial savings, and honestly, some tougher decision making with our municipal budget if we're going to put all these asks forward. So again, thank you the opportunity to engage virtually, and would be happy to speak to some of the other municipal budget questions, which is another part of the picture here. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Ben. All right, looking at the time, I think we're going to shift gears to the last part of what we wanted to do tonight. Dale's going to hand out some note cards and pencils. Ward 6 is very clearly more prepared than Ward 5 because I did not have a handy stash of pencils and note cards. So thank you.
I'm going to say there's not quite enough pencils for everybody, but I do see that plenty of you have your own pens or writing implements. And if we run out, I noticed a supply on a desk over there that I will steal, provided that we can give them all back at the end of the night.
So here's,
We can share.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do.
What's that?
And for a number of reasons, this is a bit of an artificial exercise. And what I mean by that is, as Jack said, as many other people have said, there's a lot of factors that come into play in what the cost of living is for folks. And those factors are different for people who are renting versus own their homes, for people who are sending kids to college versus not. There's all kinds of things in the picture. So really what we wanted to do here was to give people a chance to go with your gut of how much you feel you could afford and would be willing to pay in an ideal world above and beyond what you're already currently paying for basically for taxes and utilities. And for renters, all I can say is go with your gut of what you feel you can afford on top of what you're already paying in rent, with the understanding that that is a heavy burden already. What we're trying to do here is to approach this question of what we invest in as a city from a supply side as well as a demand side. The demand side is everything you heard from Chapin and from many others of here's what our city needs. And what we're trying to do here is to say back, here's what we can afford. And this exercise is the best that we could come up with to give some sort of indication along those lines. And we freely admit that it is extremely far from perfect, but it's an attempt to have something on the other side of the equation, on the supply side, the money that we're supplying, in addition to the demand side, the things that our community needs. So that's the basic idea. And what we're going to do is you each have a card and a pen or a pencil. We're going to start with $10 and go up from there to what's our top number of everything combined? The monthly cost?
Let's say $60.
70?
I mean, we're looking forward years here.
Yeah.
But
So, thinking ahead, we'll go from $10 to $70. And what we'd like everybody to do is, as you hear a number, if you would be willing to pay that additional amount per month in order to support the kinds of things that you heard about tonight, write that number down on your card. And keep going, writing additional numbers, 10, 20, whatever you feel you can support until you get to the point where you think, enough for me. At that point, just start writing X's. And then we're going to collect all the cards and see how many people came in at each level. Yes, this is per month, and it's on top of what you currently pay in the sort of basic maintenance costs of being a Burlington resident. Yes.
Is this assuming no further infrastructure projects? And also, factor in inflation.
You're making it way more complicated than our little exercise can handle. I'm sorry.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
For example, I think that the bond cost of $10 a month, and then $20 a month the following year, and then $30 a month the following year, those are going to stay those numbers.
Okay.
Okay, so those aren't going to be like, okay, well, we've also had 10% inflation on top of that. So it's actually $12. Those are
Yeah.
going to stay those numbers. So I think let's just not count inflation in this.
We're not trying to like wrap our heads around the entire big picture of affordability because that's just hopelessly complicated, but rather to hone in on the affordability increase increment represented by these bonds and see how people feel about that. And who knows if this is going to work? It may end up just not making any sense at all. And by the way, starting with 0 is fine if that's where you're at. If you're like, I'm tapped out, write X's from the start, wherever you're at. Yeah, Joan.
I wondered how you want us to account for, like, in this case, the bond numbers change for, it's a 5-year projection. So what we can afford this year versus what we can afford in 5 years, or just what we can afford this year in perpetuity?
I think I'm just going to leave that to each person to decide. Really, this is just a gut check and you get to approach it however you like. And we'll see how it turns out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, let's go over here first and then online. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becca Brown McKnight. I'm the city councilor for Ward 6. And I realize that we can't be totally comprehensive in this survey, but I was just sort of feeling my own self react to thinking about all of this. And I just want to acknowledge that we are all living in a time where the budgetary pressures on every household in the city are really intense. And I just think it's important to name that and talk about it because it's not just pressures from your city water bill and your city tax bill and your school tax bill. People are worried about their job security. People are worried about inflation overall. They're worried about their car payments and, the price of gasoline. They're worried about childcare payments. And so I just felt like it was important to say that out loud as we're all thinking about this and maybe feeling a little nervous about it, like I am myself. And just know that your representatives are thinking about it in that holistic way as well. A lot of times we have to focus in on all these tiny little details because that's the job at hand. But it's really important to zoom out to the big picture level, like some folks are talking about, your renter-landlord dynamic and the lack of power that exists there. And so this is all, I just think it's important to look at that
Becca,
big
I might
picture.
have missed it, but I don't think you introduced yourself.
I did.
You did? Okay. I'm sorry. I was
I think I
distracted.
was whispering to you about
There we go.
what comes next.
Dale's fault. She was whispering in my.
But I can close with Becca Brown, city councilor for Ward 6.
Thank you for all the people who are also distracted.
And I know we have a couple hands online as well as a couple in the room, but Becca, I wanted to say thank you. And I also wanted to just add one other thing, and it kind of relates to what you said, which is why I'm jumping in before the questions, which is to say there's plenty of extra cards in the room. And so if folks would like to take a second, would like to add some comments as opposed to just the numbers that Jason was talking about, if folks would like to add comments as well, we will collect them all and transmit them all to all the elected officials.
And also back to.
And back to ourselves as
wards.
well.
Yeah.
So it'll be totally anonymous, but just to get a sense of the room, which is really all this is a sense of the room.
Yep.
I got a question after those folks too.
Yeah, let's go to, we've got one online here and then we'll circle back. Diane, if you'd like to go ahead. You're on mute, Diane.
Thank you. Okay, Diane, Ward 6. I appreciate can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I appreciate what Becca was saying. And I understand the desire for an exercise, but listening to the conversation and already knowing about all these topics, I have no clear idea what the projected, is it $7 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month times 12? I can't sit here and calculate that. I don't know. Maybe after I've finished my taxes for the year, I could tell you something. But to sit here in the moment and say, oh, this is what I can afford. What
I would encourage you to do, Diane, is to take up what Dale said. And if folks feel like numbers just don't work for this, feel free to just write a comment, written feedback of where you're at. All of that is useful. And really all we're doing here is looking for any and every piece of the supply side of the equation of us as taxpayers and renters in the city of Burlington.
Well, I think you got that from the comments and the discussions. I think fairly you're going to stick on what people say, what the number is, and it's going to be a false piece of information by a small group of people that are participating, and it's not going to be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see. I'm very interested to see where it lands, and it may be that it isn't, but I think regardless, it'll have been a good discussion to have along the way. Why don't we do one more question, and then we're going to dive in. Joel in the back there. Oh, and David, I'm sorry. Yes, we'll do these two. Joel first. Go ahead.
The microphone. Oh, sorry. Hi, Joel Baird, Ward 6. I just have a question about the procedure of this. And I am stuck with a whole bunch of extra cards. Are we going to have one question? I mean, could we boil this down to one question about how much more can you afford per month in your budget this coming year? Because, I mean, that's basically what we want to know, right?
There's multiple ways we can approach it. If you feel more comfortable just putting down a yearly number and you want to specify per year, that's great. But we also felt it might be useful for folks to just go through it in a measured way and see where they top out. But again, whatever works for you is great.
Well, that's just one number wherever you top out. I mean, month or year, right? Or are you going to say,
yeah,
water for sewer?
No. The reason why we're reading out the numbers is just to make it a little bit more of a sort of deliberate, thoughtful thing where people get to sort of feel their way to whatever number works. If you already know where you top out, great, write that number down.
These look like pretty thoughtful people to me.
Okay.
Anyway,
David, go ahead.
Thanks for the chance to do that, Jason.
Absolutely.
My only question is, less than a week from now, we have a change in administrations on the federal level.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling that we're all going to be in for some kind of financial shock, I would say, within a month of that. And I would say if we're going to do this, maybe we ought to have another one done in about a month, because
we could certainly have another discussion and treat this as a trial run and see what we learn from this. But you're right, there's a whole lot of things in play right now. Did I see there was one over here somewhere? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there, Pat from Ward 5. So how do I capture it? Can I just write it down? I'll definitely skip a pizza a month to pay for water, infrastructure stuff. Or half a pizza or a slice, whatever it turns out to be with inflation. But the other stuff, I don't know. So, I mean, for me, it's not about it's not like how much can I pay? It's like, what do I get to decide about what the city's going to charge?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You all have blown up in very productive ways our nice little exercise here, and I'm very glad for it, because really what we're looking for is where's everybody at, and this was our point of entry, but not by any means the be all and end all. So I'm going to stick with the original plan, but invite anybody to take this in any direction you want, whether it's an annual number, whether it's I'm tapped out, whether it's written comments and questions. It's all good and all useful. But let's go through and start with $10 a month. Yes.
I was just going to say, what about people online? How do we get their input?
The Q&A.
I'd say if they're comfortable emailing, I think the folks from Ward 6 can find me, the folks from Ward 5 can find Jason. If they're comfortable emailing, which granted is not anonymous, but if they're comfortable doing that, I would invite that. But otherwise, we'll get them next time.
And any Ward 5 folks who want to drop an anonymous card in my mailbox, I imagine most people know more or less where I live. So yes, I'm sorry, we're We are less than technically perfect on this, and I'm glad you raised the question, but we don't have a good answer, other than find us. All right, so $10 a month for improvements to city services. If you're good with $10 a month, write down 10.
Yeah. Well, that's $120 a year.
That's $120 a year, correct. And when you top out, just start writing X's. $20 a month.
You want to check in with Diane online?
Let's go through the numbers. This part will really only take a minute, and then yes, $30 a month, $40 a month, and $50 a month. And let's pause here, Dan. Why don't we, while we're in this spot, Diane, I'm going to ask you to hold for just 1 minute. Let's give everybody 60 seconds to write down any thoughts you want to write down. And then we'll close out with final questions and thoughts for the whole group.
Like fold the cards or something.
Sure, thank you.
You want to know the Jeopardy jingle?
Yeah.
I do, but you do not want me to sing it.
Okay. Diane, again, online, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just unmuted. So maybe while you have everybody there with their cards, what's occurring to us is that a sense of prioritizing. Like, would I rather invest in helping the sewage treatment plant do what it needs to do and not have my sidewalk plowed? Would I rather have better water than something with the park that needed to be rehabilitated? I think there's a prioritization that is missing in this. That's just, how much can I afford? How much could I spend versus like the one with the pizza I thought was right on to it. I want to know what my priorities are and how I can support the city in a way that's functional for what needs to occur. And asking us what our priorities are might be a really good value. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I like that.
Lena, go ahead.
I think it's really disappointing to hear all of this conversation about priorities. We've heard from people of variable political beliefs and class identities that we need this. We need our water infrastructure to function. We need our sidewalks to be walkable. This is not about squeezing city assets. It's about asking the wrong people to pay for it. As a lot of folks have spoken to, if you're renting, you are at the mercy of your landlord who is paying some of these increases, but that's where the money is going. It's not that there isn't any money in this town. There's plenty of money in this town. And I think we especially stray into dangerous territory when we let people who can afford to pay their bills decide which services we deserve. And then everybody else who is relying on public goods has to then pay the cost. If you're driving on a road that hasn't been repaved, if you're walking on a sidewalk that hasn't been repaired, and you trip and fall or you total your car, that cost is on you. And if you can afford that, you're fine. But if we're taking money away from public goods, then we're leaving people who are much more economically unstable to shoulder that cost. So I also am like living on the edge, just like everyone else between the ages of 20 and 40 in this town. And Burlington's going to suck if we all leave. So I really think it's worth us thinking about who we're investing in and where we're looking for those resources, because it's not that they're not here.
Good point.
Graham, go ahead. And I will, hang on, before you go, it is 8:25. We're going to officially close at 8:30. I welcome anybody and everybody to stay and continue to the discussion, but please feel free to head out at 8:30 if that's what works for you in your evening. Graham, go ahead.
Hi, Bram Klepner. I live in Ward 6, and I'm one of our representatives in Montpelier for Wards 5 and 6. And we are 1 week into the session, and I will tell you there has been a great deal of focus on affordability. And affordable housing and homelessness are both problems that ultimately are solved by building more housing. And it does feel as though we're at a point where it will be possible to move forward on building housing in a way we have not in a lot of years. And the governor in his inaugural speech said, it's time to legalize housing. And, more of a vote of support from him for doing these things than we have had in the past. I also think there is a meaningful amount of energy around doing something to meaningfully reduce property taxes fairly quickly. And most likely that will mean shifting some of the education property tax from property to income. There's a sense that will deliver meaningful property tax reductions and also will make the tax system more progressive and fairer and move more of the burden off of lower and middle income people. All I can say is I'm going to work really hard on those things and try to get some meaningful progress on ways to make things more affordable for everyone.
Are there more folks who have cards that I should pick up?
And again, for the folks who are online, our apologies for not being more prepared with an online solution. It is a little tricky, but we will do better if we do this again. My email, an easy email to send comments to, if you would like, is my street address, 129 Caroline @gmail.com. Or you can just stick it in my mailbox at 129 Caroline Street. Over here, Milo.
Thank you. One of the things that I have learned in my time on the council is that mayors of all political backgrounds have really kicked the proverbial ball down the street with regards to deferred maintenance, quote unquote. And the chickens are coming home to roost. That's what I seem to be saying a lot lately. We have, as many of you know, issues with the buildings that house our police and fire departments. We have issues with fleet. I'm a little bit obsessed with fleet right now. The fact that you can order a vehicle and you don't get it for a few years, but you save significant amounts of money if you order it now, but you can't budget it now, and thinking about things like this. I will say the reason we are probably going to see more increases is because we have to start to repair these things, because if they break, it's going to cost substantially more. And that's part of what we need to be thinking about as well. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now 8:30. I'm going to officially adjourn this meeting and invite anyone who wants to hang out and keep chatting to do so. Thank you all so much. And please take food.
Go containers. Take some food home, please. Thank you.
Free, does every school dairy free?
And don't forget to give us your card before you head out.
Why is that insane reaction?
Yeah, no, sometimes I use butter in the sauce.